You find yourself listening to two boys talk about a fantasy novel on their podcast. What brought you to this point in time? What turns did you take in your life to arrive at this juncture? Now you have a decision to make. Will you continue to listen or turn it off? Go outside and kiss a bird.
Stare at the sun.
Those are your only two options. Do whichever one you want. Hey guys, I'm Sam.
I'm John.
And this is Sam and John's book club. We're continuing to read Oathbringer in great anticipation of Rhythm of War coming out in November.
Yeah, which officially has cover art. Did you see that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
I recently followed Brando Sando on Twitter, and I'm getting all the insider info.
Wow. Actually, if I remember, I'll put up the cover art in the video as well.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Shallan. Look at her.
Yeah, I think it's got Shallan just hanging out.
Shallan's hanging out.
It's the same artist that has done all the other books, of course.
Yeah, it looks good.
I spelled a rhythm correctly first try typing this into Google.
Yeah, with the title being Rhythm of War, I would have expected it to be more battle themed.
Yeah, no, she's just like...
She's just doing some exploring or something.
Yeah, she's got weird square crystal thingies behind her.
Yeah, weird square crystal thingies. There's a...
there's a mineral that grows that way. Like in the world.
I'm not going to throw out random mineral names, but I'm familiar. I've seen this mineral in museums. There's also, if you look at the full cover art, including the back cover, there's a man kneeling there with a sword, which might be, I don't know. It looks like a Dalinar's robe, uniform. It's like a blue jacket, right? That might be Kaladin. His hair is white though, and who's got white hair? That's like Hoyd, right? Or maybe Zeth is gonna start growing hair out. I don't know. That could be anyone over there.
To say.
All right. Well, either way, this time around we read chapters 11 through 20. So without further ado, let's start talking about this freaking book.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this reading. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just in a good mood, but I was like loving it to death. Basically every bit, even the flashbacks.
Yeah. I don't know. We're in the good stuff. We're right in the meat of a Brando Sando novel.
Yeah. I mentioned to Lucas just after we finished recording our last one. I was like, oh yeah, we were talking about how in all of like the epigraphs, I think they're called, right? Mm-hmm. For part one, it's just Yasna's book. It's like the prologue to her book, and it's like also useless, LOL. And he was like, Yasna's book. And I was like, what? And it turns out it's actually Dalinar is the author to these epigraphs. Yeah. Huh.
I guess that makes more sense.
Like, and once he said it, and I was continuing to listen to them, I was like, well, I guess this does. I mean, all the words are more like blunt and simple, right? Yeah. And I guess it's easy to believe, but yeah, turns out Dalinar is the author of the in-lore book Oathbringer, which
There's still useless epigraphs, don't let's
yeah.
not labor under that delusion, but yeah, that's
Yeah, I certainly don't have anything else to say about them, but it's just like, well, let's clear that up. That I was
I
was super wrong about that last time. Whoopsie daisy.
I never would have guessed. I assumed it was just yes no this whole time, but now that you mention it, it makes sense.
Speaking of Dalinar, we start with one of his flashbacks.
Yes.
Bada bing, bada boom.
30 years or so ago.
And this one was really cool. This one had another moment for me that was just like so easy to visualize. And I always love those. Those are some of my favorite moments in reading in general.
Right.
So Dalinar and Gavilar and Sadeas are all not really laying siege to, just like straight up assaulting this place called the Rift, right? Mm-hmm. Which seems to be this big, it's like a city in some sort of like...
Yeah, it's like built into like a little
valley,
fissure kind
canyon, fissure. Yeah, it's like it's down underground somehow.
Right.
And Dalinar is killing the heck out of a lot of people.
Yep, just going ham.
Yeah, I mean it's... that meme, John, where the guy is like observing that their uniforms have skulls on them and he says, "Are we the baddies?" Do you know
I
that
don't
meme?
think so.
Well,
No.
it's a meme. Dude,
I'm like
at this
a
point,
month behind in memes. You got to give me one of the astronauts staring.
this
at
is
the
an
Earth and it's
old
like always
meme.
has
All right,
been.
John, I'll put it in astronaut terms. The first astronaut says, "Wait, are we the baddies?" And the other one says, "Always have been." But their spacesuits have skulls on them.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
with
dude, Dalinar is totally the bad guy in this.
you. Oh
Like,
yeah, 100%.
Past Dalinar, 33 years ago, Dalinar could easily be like the final boss in a D&D campaign.
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
And like
he is
you
a
could
straight up warmonger.
you could have protagonists who's like, their village was raided by Dalinar's horrible troops and their parents were taken away and forced to go on the front lines and just like die in meaningless battle, right?
Yep.
And eventually you go back for revenge on this terrible warlord. And that's Dalinar.
Yep. Pretty
Holy
much.
moly.
I mean, and so during this whole kind of assault on the town, they know that the city lord has a shard blade, and they're like, Dalinar's like, "Oh, I gotta get me that. Like, leave that guy to me." And Sadeas is like, "Well, we'll see. Whoever gets to him first, kind of deal."
Yeah. They're being like playful about it because this is all like a game to them, more or less.
Right. Yeah. And again, and this is kind of a theme in all of the flashbacks, but the thrill is really emphasized. Like really pushing Dalinar along in all of his, warmongery ways.
Live by the thrill, die by the thrill.
Yeah, pretty much. And the end of this chapter was pretty rough.
Dude, I mean, yeah, more or less, Dalinar's just chasing this guy, and he, duels him a little bit, and there are guards around. And eventually, he has this guy on the ropes. He knocks down some sort of like support structure, so they both go crashing down into the city below. Both him and the City Lord of the Rift. And at this point, both of his arms are like badly wounded. And this is the moment I was talking about that was like so easy to visualize for me. From this instant where Dalinar looks up and he sees a guard like looking like cautiously out of a doorway or something, and Dalinar's like, that's where they took the City Lord. So he starts trudging off after them, both of his arms basically just hanging limply at his sides, right?
Yeah.
And he goes into this hallway, and these two guards are like, "Oh my god, we're gonna die, so we just have to rush him and see what we can do." And Dalinar ducks down and slams his shoulder into one of the guards, just crushing him against the wall, right?
Yeah.
And then kicks the other one and sends him flying into the opposite wall. And just keeps walking down this hallway. He's probably just like torn to heck. I'm imagining blood like dripping down one of his eyes, And he kicks open the door, and the City Lord is lying there like dying, like bleeding to death. And his wife is distraught, laying over him. And the City Lord's son is standing there holding this shard blade that he could hardly lift, just like crying. And I was like, "Oh my god!" That entire sequence of events, I was like watching a movie, just imagining this, and it was so hype.
Yeah, I was reading this chapter late last night, and like kind of the whole thing I was just like reading along, and then this part started happening, and I like sat up and I was like, "Oh jeez."
Yeah.
It just got like really intense out of nowhere.
So intense. And yeah, the son is standing there brandishing the shard blade, and Dalinar's like, "Well," and then scene cuts to
Yep.
The future where Dalinar now has the shard blade.
Yep.
And it sounds like the people are going to rebel because they will most certainly be upset with Dalinar for killing not only the High Lord but also his heir.
Yeah.
The kid distraughtly brandishing a sword. So that, yikes.
Yep. Ugh. Yeah, Dalinar, not a cool dude back in his a cool dude, but not a nice guy.
Not a nice guy. Sometimes you gotta kill a kid,
Yeah, I don't know what my ranking of flashback Dalinar is. I don't know if they've ever done ranking some flashback characters.
Well, for flashback characters, normally they're not that different from present day characters. Really,
Yeah,
well,
true.
sort of. But with Dalinar,
But
they really feel like two totally distinct people, almost.
Yeah, and his flashbacks are from a lot, much like further in the past. So I guess that kind of makes sense. But
yeah, I mean, it was 33 years ago, right? So this probably would have been with when Dalinar was like early 20s, I would guess, maybe mid 20s.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Either way, moving forwards, it's whack. We are now back in Urithiru, which Michael Kramer just once pronounced Urethriu, and it really threw me off.
Okay.
This like wacky thing kind of happened where, back in one of the interludes in book 2, Lift saved that kid and he became the prime Occasix of Aesir, and I was like, oh haha, that's kind of a funny thing that happened to this poor kid,
Yeah.
And then it kind of came up again in Edge Dancer. It's like, oh, she's asking him for help now, and he has some power, he has some sway, so she's like in good with the prime.
Yep.
But now like Dalinar is talking to this kid and like negotiating with him on like the world stage, and I was like, oh my god, that kid's actually like a kind of a deal. Like he's kind of
right. He's legitimately important now.
Yeah, like these things where when they were happening, I was just like, oh haha, the kid is the the guy in charge.
It's
that's kind of funny.
World building thingy, yeah.
But now it's like actually a big deal. Yeah, so I think that this random kid I've forgotten the name of who Lift made the leader of Azir might actually be kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So yeah, Dalinar is trying to, do politics more or less, kind of just convince everybody that they gotta stand against the Voidbringers and build up against these storms coming from the other way, and
yep, it's not going well.
He's just not very good at it. Yeah.
The Azish are just like overly bureaucratic, and they're kind of talking him in circles. The Queen of Thalina contacts him and starts out by like being really immature, which apparently means she's in a good mood. And like showing her real face, but then she switches over to being more formal, which means that they lost her somewhere down the road. So she's also not going to help out. Luckily, one person does contact Dalinar and says that he's willing to cooperate. It's the friendly, totally altruistic king, Taravangian.
Yeah, Taravangian, a king of Carbron, thought to be kind of slow-witted, but hey, an ally's an ally. Somebody Dalinar can really count on.
Now there's a man that Dalinar can trust.
Yeah.
Taravangian does say that he has a Radiant at hand, ready to operate their Oath Gate. So who is Taravangian's Radiant? I don't think we've met them yet.
No, yeah, I don't
so
recall,
that's going to be whack. It's certainly not Zeth. He's off with
Nin,
yeah, Nolan, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
Another thing we learned throughout all of this is that all of the Parshmen they're not like Void Parshmen. They're not Voidbringers.
Yeah,
it seems like they've just turned into Parshendi.
Form.
They've just like, they're no longer in slave form, but that's about it.
Right, yeah, we don't know which form they're in, but it doesn't seem to be war form, and it doesn't seem to be storm form. So.
Yeah. I think it's just like work form. I don't know.
Yeah, work or nimble, yeah. One of the more, I don't know, docile ones, I guess. Not Voidbringers.
Yeah, so they're just kind of, I don't know. That's kind of weird. The Everstorm, a little bit less apocalyptic than one might have originally suspected.
Right, yeah, it seems much more mild than we thought.
It's like the Parshendi just aren't going to be slaves anymore, and that's like, Well, I guess that's... we can probably survive that.
That. Yeah.
Oh. All right, moving on, I suppose. Shallan is... I don't know. She is coping with her traumas and whatnot by becoming Veil, and now an exciting new personality. Or is that not until later?
I think that's not until later.
That's a couple of chapters later.
This is where just... Adolin comes and brings her food,
Yep. They're hanging out. We have a fun, romance chapter.
Where, Shallan is talking to Pat, and she's like, you have to be our chaperone. And he was like, what is that? And she's like, it's, somebody that supervises when you're alone together so you don't do anything inappropriate. And Pattern's like, inappropriate, like... dividing by 0?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Eventually, Pattern figured out they're talking about sex, which he makes a very big deal of. Haha, hee XD, as the kids say.
Lol.
And I mean, that's
Top
pretty much that
kick
one. I don't know that
W.
we.
That's what the kids say. Got to keep up on my meme lingo. That's what Twitch chat spams nowadays.
Yeah, poggers.
Poggers. Ugh, get pwned.
Get pwned, noobs.
I was listening to Reply All, which is the best podcast, vastly superior to this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, John.
One of their segments is called Yes, Yes, No, where they, like, their boss brings them a tweet that he doesn't understand, and they have to explain, like, memes and, like, you know, like, where all of, like, this language comes together to make this weird tweet.
Oh, sure.
And so in one of the episodes, and I'm listening to I've listened to a lot since then, but I was listening to episodes back in, like, 2017, 2018, and they had to explain to him what pwned meant and why you would, like, say own to somebody in the first place, and just hearing them break it down like it was some sort of science was really funny. And their boss is like, okay, yeah, no, and he's all for it, you know, he's learned a lot through this process.
Yeah, that's fun. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it's a cool recurring little segment there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
moving forwards.
Yeah, not a lot really happens in that chapter besides fun romance fluff, I guess.
Just like we sort of observed third hand through Dalinar's conversations with various world leaders, Kaladin is also observing more firsthand that, yeah, these Parshendi are, they're not that Voidbringer-y, are they?
Right, yeah, they're not being barbaric or anything, like, they're just kind of trying to make it, but they're not super experienced in, you know, being, like, refugees, I guess. I don't know what you would even call them.
Yeah, refugees is good. Yeah, they're trying to survive, they're trying to escape, they're trying to remember how card games work. Just generally pretty harmless.
Yeah, Kaladin's kind of spying on this group that he's followed that left Hearthstone, and he's like, yeah, just seeing that they're not really doing anything. They spot him, and he's like, yep, I surrender, and he's just, like, allowing himself to be captured to see kind of what the deal is.
Yeah, because, like, he could have killed all of them. He commented on he could have taken all of these guys even without Stormlight, right?
Right, yeah.
But, like, you know, why kill a bunch of guys that can't fight? If they can't fight, they're not a threat. They're not part of the apocalypse, right? So
Yeah. Might as well just see what the deal is.
So this chapter is more or less, Kaladin observed they're not a threat, and he's like, I'll just, I guess I'll tag along with these guys and see what happens.
Yeah.
Moving forwards, now Shallan develops a fun new personality.
Right.
I'm excited to see how many she'll have by the end.
Yeah, she's like, her coping mechanism is coming up with different identities. In this case, it's Brightness Radiant.
Yes.
Which is just like a more Yasna version of herself. That doesn't have a dark and mysterious past that, you know, holds her back.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of an idealized version. I'm like, I guess this is healthy. I don't know. It's like, it certainly could get too far to the point where she starts, like, you know, like fracturing her personality, but that doesn't seem, you know, too imminent.
Well,
it just
this
seems
one
like,
seems useful to have, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because if she needs to do, you know, radiant stuff, she tosses on this persona, which is perfect for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically kind of like a politician form in a way. Like, she's just being the like leader that people need her to be.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It kind of makes sense because, you know, like there's the whole concept of, you know, like visualization for when you want to like achieve something. You like picture yourself achieving that thing. This is kind of like that in that she's putting on the face that she like wants to have when dealing with important matters. So I'm like, I guess it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a little bit multiple personality disorder-y.
Yeah.
But if it's on purpose, can you still call it a disorder? I don't know.
Yeah. Right. I think she's like kind of towing a line, but I think at the moment it's not bad, but she should probably keep an eye on it.
Also in this chapter, Kate Redding pronounced Zael's name Zael.
Oh.
Just kind of threw me off. I just want everything to always be pronounced one way, you know?
Well, it's funny because when they're talking about him, because, you know, it's spelled Zahel.
Yeah.
And so when I first read it, I just said Zahel, right?
Sure.
And then I read it as that, and then his name came up again, and I was like, oh, Sam always says it this way, so I'll just think of it this way from now on for, like, consistency's sake.
Yeah.
So now I think of it as Zael. But, yeah, it's, and it's so funny. my girlfriend is reading Elantris right now.
Ooh,
and
nice.
She was like, "What are these names?" And I was like, "Yeah, Brandon Sanderson, not his strong suit, I guess. He just really does whatever he wants with them."
Dude, bring her on the podcast. We can do a bonus episode.
Oh yeah, there we go. A little Elantris aside.
Yeah, I'm just about
But I
done
mean-
now with Warbreaker,
Oh yeah.
and what a book.
Yeah, it's. I was thinking about, because I'm gonna try to get her to read Mistborn after this, and so we'll see if that happens. But I was thinking Warbreaker would be another like good one to, give to somebody that hadn't read Sanderson as a standalone, so there's not as much of a commitment to it. But
Yeah, Warbreaker fun. I'm enjoying it a lot more the second time around than I did the first. Just sort of
I'd be
inexplicably.
interested to see, because that was one I listened to also, but that was a long time ago. That was like almost 2 years ago, maybe. I don't know. Probably not that long.
2 whole years.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Ooh, hello, cat. Anyway.
Yeah, so I don't know. Shallan learns some swordplay from Adolin himself. Well, I guess actually, Brightness Radiant learns some swordplay from Adolin, which I don't know if Shallan will be able to use without taking up this persona.
Yeah, it's like how separated are these identities?
Yeah, that I do not know. I'm sure we'll find out soon enough.
Yeah.
It seems like it still sickens Shallan a little bit to even summon Pattern as a sword.
Right.
So I guess we'll see what
She's
happens.
still trying to do that weird thing where she says that she doesn't hate Pattern, but she does hate the sword. It's like a very weird stance she's taken there. But we'll see how that develops.
I don't know. Nothing else really happened in there for me, I don't think.
Yeah, no.
Well, bada bing, bada boom. Moving onwards. Dalinar is examining the Honor Blade, yada yada, talking to the Stormfather about, well, why will Odium send a champion? And the Stormfather is describing Odium as kind of more a force of nature than
he's
an intelligent
he's like gravity,
being. Yeah, I don't know.
which is super weird.
I guess maybe can one be, a sentient, intelligent being and a force of nature? Probably.
Maybe. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me at this point.
Yeah. Well, Dalinar is hiding the Honor Blades just in a sewer.
Yeah, just seems good at hiding places anywhere else.
Yep.
Just in a sewer pipe in an abandoned room. And then he goes down to the sparring grounds, I guess, because he just wants to burn off some steam.
Yeah, all
the
these politics are
hanging
getting
out.
to him.
Yeah, he's like, I need to just have a good little tussle about a fisticuffs.
Yeah, work up a sweat,
Yeah.
And
it's falling off the chair, and she just grabbed the armrest and was just hanging there. She's like, well, this is where I am now. Anyway, yeah. So all the Ardents are down there, and there's
all of the Swordmaster Ardents.
Right. Yes.
And Dalinar is like, hey, one of you guys spar with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the Swordmaster Ardents say no. Because, of course, Dalinar has now made an enemy of the entire Vorin religion. So, bada bing, bada boom. He's commenting, he's saying, oh, well, the Swordmaster Ardents have always seemed less religion, less ardenty than the others, right? But even these guys are just not going to be having it. So he gets one of the other, some noble's son or something to spar with him. And they have a nice wrestling match.
Yeah, the Dalinar loses pretty soundly.
And
he knows that he can reach for Stormlight to win or the Thrill, but he doesn't really want to do either one to try to help him in this little tussle.
Yeah.
And I was like, good on you. Stay away from both of those in this case specifically.
Yeah, it makes sense. He's getting old. Navani shows up. She kind of breaks things up. It's time for them to have another little talk with the Iriali Queen over Spanreed. And Dalinar's like, oh, just do it here. Also, I'm going to spar with an Ardent after all, and I guess they can't say no now for some reason.
Yeah, he's he commands them to spar with him, so he's fighting his Ardent, who is kind of his friend, but
Kadash, who was once one of his elites.
Yeah.
Now a full-fledged Ardent, and and Dalinar considers him a friend, and they're debating religion while they're sparring, while he's having this conversation with the Ariali Queen over Spanreed.
And I'm like, God, geez, I could not multitask like this. This sounds very stressful.
Yeah. The Ariali Queen says that she's considering making a treaty with the Voidbringers. It sounds like they have some good points, apparently.
Right, yeah. And they were like, I guess that we never considered that would happen, and the Ardent's getting all up in Dalinar's grill because he's mad that, the like illegitimate marriage has gone through. That was strike one. And then, saying that the god of their church is dead is kind of a strike 2 and 3 combo. And he's like, hey, just take that one back and maybe we'll be okay, Like, I can talk away the rest.
Kadash is telling Dalinar, like, you're parting from tradition, and Dalinar starts giving a great little, I don't know, story about how, his swordmaster always had them tie his belt 3 times, right? 3 knots. Everyone else did it 2, and he was like, weird. So he asked his master, why do we always do that? He says, well, my master always did that. So he hunts down that guy's master, and that guy says, oh, yes, my master always did that. And he hunts down that guy's master, and that guy was just really short, and he's like, oh, well, if I don't tie it 3 times, I trip over my belt, the parts that are hanging out. And I really like that, I mean, there was another story about this from real life, right? About a church got a new pastor. And as this new pastor was doing communion, he would like take the hands of his congregation, just like the old pastor did, right? However, the old pastor had this thing he would do every time before he took somebody's hands. He would touch the radiator in the room, right? And it was just like this weird little thing he did, but they all got really used to it, and it was almost kind of off-putting when this new pastor didn't touch the radiator anymore, right? And somebody, he was like, well, why do I seem to be getting like a weird vibe while I do this? And a congregation member explained it to him, and he was like, oh, weird. So he hunted down the old pastor to ask him, like, why the heck did you touch the radiator before taking people's hands, right? And he was like, oh, just to make sure I didn't have any static electricity, He didn't want to accidentally shock someone. And that was it, right? And it's like,
wow.
I don't know.
Huh. Interesting.
Some traditions are just, they only exist because people have been doing them for a long time. Like there's no real reason past all that, right?
They're based in some kind of innocuous thing, but they just became a tradition because nobody really like questioned why it was happening in the first place. Not for good or for bad, even just like that's just how it happened.
Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of liked that. It was Dalinar's little story was pretty fun.
Yeah, solid metaphor. Yeah. Literary term is.
At the end of this chapter, kind of a big thing happens.
Yeah. So Navani's just like talking about how all these like people are connected, and she, because the queen of the region that I
Ariali
pronounced correctly, Ariali, yeah, was saying that the shard plate that Adolin now owns was like stolen from them, and they think that Dalinar's a thief, and they're not gonna negotiate with a terrorist.
Yeah.
And so he's like, how did that even happen? So Navani's explaining all these connections, which involves Dalinar's wife, but he hears her name just fine.
Yeah.
And suddenly all the memories come back to him, and he like collapses under the weight of like this, person that he had completely forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's all of his memories. I think it's specifically this next flashback we got.
Okay.
I think these were the memories that came back to him. But he heard his wife's name. It's Evie, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he can just hear that again now. And like, what the heck has caused
what
this?
What happened to this curse from the Night Watcher that is just no longer happening?
I'm not sure. Is this the first time somebody has said his name since he bound the Stormfather? Has said his wife's name? And so is the fact that he's bound him somehow allowing him to hear this name again? Has it like healed that in his mind somehow?
Right, yeah, I could see that being the case.
Or alternatively, has something happened to the Night Watcher herself, and suddenly everybody's boons and curses are going to start being revoked?
Yeah. Yeah, my guess was the Stormlight, or the radiant powers, but yeah, I suppose we don't know that for certain.
Also, by the way, we've talked before about how Dalinar, we know his curse is that he can't remember his wife, which is now apparently disappearing. And we've asked what is his boon a good number of times, right? And I don't know why I was thinking about this today, but there was back when he was out on a battlefield in the end of Book 2, he went into like a triage tent because he had taken an arrow to the shoulder or something like that. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And whatever surgeon was looking at his shoulder was like, oh my god, there are like so many scars over here. This arm shouldn't even be functional, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you think that could be related?
Yeah, maybe.
So
I guess when I read that, I was thinking it was also Stormlight related, but like those scars would have been from before like any of this stuff would have happened, you know? So,
yeah, I mean, at that point, he certainly had not bound the Stormfather yet, you know?
Right. Yeah. Huh.
I don't know. Just a theory.
I mean, it would be like old Dalinar to wish for something that can make him more effective in battle, so...
Yeah. Dude, maybe
Not
Dalinar's secretly been immortal this whole time, and we just don't know it.
Yeah. That would be quite the boon.
That'd be pretty whack. And after all that, after, you know, he kind of gets some memories back, which we're gonna get a glimpse at later.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to Kaladin hanging out with all his parchment pals.
Yep, and now they're just kind of buds. I mean, not really. Like, there's still definitely resentment there, but
Yeah.
he's just, like, helping them figure stuff out. He's like, here's how you build a fire. Here's how you make an axe. You know? Like,
Yeah.
just teaching them basic survival skills, I guess.
And I really like all of this because this is all very, you know, honor sprenny stuff to do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This,
yeah.
like, you know, he swore some oaths, and this is all very in line with those. And it seems like Syl would be a big fan of this stuff because, you know, he is helping those who cannot help themselves, right? And just being
pretty much.
Just being like a cool, helpful guy to these parshmen. And, you know, he's saying that he shouldn't get too close to them because he needs to be able to think of these guys as them so that he can kill them to protect us, right?
Yeah. Right,
But-
that's like a huge thing in wars, you know, is like you kind of like almost dehumanize your enemy so it's easier to kill them.
Yeah, but now I'm thinking, well, what if Kaladin comes to really like all these guys, but just like sort of happened with R'lain, right, priorly known as Shen, you know, what if in getting to know Kaladin, they also decide like, oh, well, maybe we don't need to do all the fighting after all. Maybe, you know,
and
we can all just
making treaties like
sing Kumbaya and...
Because it's like, it's such a weird issue because like, we know that the Voidbringers are the Stormform Parshendi, or at least that's the running theory.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, you know, definitely more of a issue with the Void Spren than it is the Parshendi themselves. And we see the Parshendi themselves really aren't, you know, antagonistic in any way.
Yeah.
Other than they've made out to be because they assassinated Gavilar.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. Would killing the, you know, Stormform Parshendi be more like curing a symptom, and the disease itself is actually these Voidspren, right? Or I guess Odium.
Right. Yeah. I would say Odium is the disease in question.
Yeah.
So have to see.
Also,
and like their children Parshendi, which Kaladin's like, well, yeah, I guess I just never saw them.
Yeah.
But I guess there have to be.
Yeah, makes sense. It turns out the Parshendi do actually have a Voidspren.
Mm-hmm.
It hasn't inhabited any of them. It's just sort of chilling around them and giving them orders and stuff.
Yeah, telling them where to go.
And this makes me wonder, are there a finite number of Voidspren? I think there must be, right? It makes sense there's a finite number of every Spren, I would think.
Sure, yeah.
So are there more Parshendi than there are Voidspren? And in that sense, can only, you know, some subset of all the Parshendi be Voidbringers at any given time, and maybe they act like generals leading the rest of the Parshendi to battle, or something like that?
Yeah, I can see that.
So maybe even during the Desolations, like most of the Parshendi were not, you know, Voidbringers per se. They were just like troops or something. And then the Void form Parshendi are like the equivalent, the Parshendi's equivalent of the Knights Radiant. They're like they're super powered, you know.
Right. Yeah, they're crazy elite.
Yeah.
OP, sect. Huh.
Something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I
know.
can see that.
Because it seems like if there were enough Voidspren to go around, I imagine the Everstone would have passed, and all of them would have just been turned into.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean that's what we assumed was going to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, clearly something is up.
That's kind of my theory. Yeah. So Kaladin is helping them, and kind of, you know, maybe gaining their trust a little bit, and he like builds them a fire and stuff, and it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Moving forwards, Shallan is disguising himself as a Veil and going out on the town to try to investigate further copycat murders
Right, and so she decides she goes into like this market, where it's like it's a little sketchy, right? Like there's a ton of business here, but this is kind of it's bordering on lawlessness. And she's like, all right, I gotta make a reputation for myself. I gotta go into a bar, drink the strongest stuff, look really, super tough.
Yeah.
So she goes in, she like leans on a crate and like stumbles over her leg because the crates aren't secured. She walks up to the bar, she's like, give me your strongest wine. And they're like, what kind? She's like, the third one. And they're like, okay, here you go. And she's like, this isn't blue. She's like, they just color it for the lighters. What's your deal?
Yeah. You a servant in a wealthy house or something? And she's like, no, I'm tough. Shut up.
And then she drinks it and immediately starts like coughing, like nearly throws up. And she's like, give me another one.
Yeah,
and
this was all this,
really...
and the bouncer starts hitting on her. And just so you know, John, listening to Kate Redding do Vale's voice, which is a little bit too deep for Kate Redding, right? And also try to sound super drunk was just a treat. Really fun, really enjoyable.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be.
Yeah, so Shallan is in there as Vale. Maybe we should say Vale was in there instead. I don't know how separate her personalities are.
You're right. Yeah.
Vale is in there just getting super drunk and talking to this bouncer, and she eventually asks him about, murders and stuff. Where did it happen, so I can avoid it. And she's just, oh, jeez.
Just doing the best, backing up her, because it's like I almost compare it to she's like thinking about these characters as like D&D characters in a way, and she's like, this is their backstory, this is like what motivates their actions. But then she just like is like playing this session poorly.
Yeah, well, I just like when you get drunk, it's hard to play your character well,
Right. Yeah.
So here Shallan is getting drunk, and she's forgetting exactly how her character would act and making stupid jokes and stuff, just like happens in real D&D, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This was just kind of a fun little chapter, and then she sucks in just a little bit of Stormlight, instantly sobers her up, and the bartender is very confused.
Yeah, and well, it's funny, too, because she didn't even know that would happen, right? She sucked in Stormlight because she fell, and she hit her elbow, and she wanted to numb the pain, or, get rid of the pain. And then it sobered her up as, like, a side effect, and she's like, oh!
Great.
I meant to do that. And she suddenly, stands up straight and acts like she was playing them the whole time.
Yeah, and the bartender, he was like, what? Was she... She was pretending that whole time, and she just like saunters out of there.
Yeah. I thought that was funny.
Yeah. So she goes to this place that that the bartender said, or the bouncer said, was the seedier part of town where she would find she was looking for that she could avoid.
And what she's looking for is murders, right?
Yep. And so she goes up to that bartender and she's like, what's the strongest thing you got? And he offers the same thing that she just had. She's like, if I wanted water, I could go to a well.
Yeah.
Like, geez, okay, here's some like moonshine, right? Like, this will literally kill you if you drink too much of it. She's like, perfect, and just like downs it, and everybody at the bar is like, what is this person's deal?
Yeah, and later somebody's like, yo, he only keeps that bottle as a joke. Like, what the heck?
Right, yeah. What is wrong with you? Yeah.
And now, last bar was a practice run. This one, she drinks it, and she is like straight-faced and even enjoys the feeling a little bit. Yeah. But now that she knows she can do it, she uses Stormlight to stop herself from getting drunk. So, bada bing, bada boom.
She walks over to this table of like thugs that the barkeep is more or less employed to like keep the place, safe, I guess.
Yeah.
And she is like taking the tough guy act up a notch. Like, she's sitting in a dude's seat, and he like throws her out of it. So she comes over and she like puts her hand on his and just stabs through both their hands. Like,
yeah,
oh, you're crazy. What
Holy moly, dude! Yeah, freaking
it reminds
maniac.
me of this isn't really a spoiler, but I've been watching Umbrella Academy.
Yeah.
And it's just very much reminded me of the scene where Klaus and Number 5 are in that place, and he like shatters the snow globe on his face. He's like, I'm crazy. This is that exact same thing. He's like, don't mess with me. Kind of the same idea.
Yeah.
So they're like, yeah, no, just somebody got strangled. What do you want? And she's like, oh, that's not that weird. Like, if they didn't get stabbed through the eye, what's the big deal? And she starts walking away. And they're like, the second murder, though. And she was like, what?
Excuse me? Yeah. And we learned something weird as heck about these murders. It is that there are not many murders happening that all mimic exactly the way Adolin killed Sadeas.
Mm-hmm.
What it seems like is happening instead is that somebody is getting killed by just like whoever, whether it be Adolin,
average
or this guy
Joe.
they threw into a canyon. Somebody is repeating every murder exactly on just some poor unfortunate soul.
Right. Yeah. So it's like a weird copycat killer, except they're just copying the most recent murder.
It's like you know how sometimes you might have a corporation that says, donate to charity over the next week, and whatever you donate, we'll match it. That's what somebody is doing with murders.
Whatever murder you do.
Whatever murder you do. One for one. Yeah.
That's actually a very good metaphor, yeah.
Yeah, so that's whack, and who knows what their motivations are.
That's a very strange copycat killer sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, I don't know.
I like it's original though, I like it.
Yeah, it's a cool concept. Definitely a Span Read newsletter fan club for this type of thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really strange. But so that's like kind of a lead, but not really. She just has more insight into like what the person is doing, but not why or how or anything.
Wow, Spanreed newsletter. That's a bit of a blast from the past, isn't it? Didn't we talk about that like way back beginning of book one sometime?
Yeah, we were saying there's definitely a true crime podcast, and we had to ask Brendan Sanderson if that existed.
And he'll give us a Raffo card. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That was one thing I mentioned to Maggie when she was that Brandon Sanderson did that to people. So she's like, like pitching some theories to me about what's gonna happen to Elantris, and I've just been saying Raffo. She's like, all right, whatever. She goes back to read it.
One other little detail from this chapter was that when Vale was trying to like act all tough and get these guys to give her information, she did scratch the symbol of the Ghost Bloods into the surface of the table, which caused them to
freak out a little bit.
Yeah, fork over some intel. And I don't remember if this is a thing or not, but I fear that her using the Ghost Blood symbol all willy-nilly will come back to bite her. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems a little reckless.
It's something that she mentioned as being like a possibility, but she said it's probably not a big deal because, they tattoo it on their bodies. It can't be that secret, right?
Well, yeah, but at the same time,
Yeah.
How big a deal was the Dark Mark? Clearly, Shalana's not read Harry Potter. That's what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Can't just be throwing that all willy-nilly.
And now we get another flashback, and I actually really enjoyed this flashback. I thought this one was awesome.
Yeah, this is fun. Yeah.
So now it's 31 years ago, which puts us a couple of years after the previous flashback.
Yep.
They've conquered about half of Alethkar at this point. They being Gavilar and his crew, right?
Yep.
And it has turned a lot away from just war all the time over to more diplomacy, bureaucracy, managing the kingdom, right? Which Dalinar just hates. Ugh.
Can't stand it.
He's
like,
somebody
kill
just kill him. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're in this feast hall and they're having these talks with some foreigner to figure stuff out. And this whole time, Dalinar can't find his knife to eat a steak with.
Yeah. Dalinar's definitely kind of drunk for all this, right? Probably pretty drunk.
Oh yeah.
So they're at this feast. Sure. They're at this feast. Gavilar is doing politics and talking to these people and trying to get them to basically join Gavilar's kingdom. And Dalinar is just sitting there getting drunk, and this steak is served in front of him. And he's like, where's my knife? Yeah, he's just he's such an idiot about it. It's fun though.
And he's trying to get the servants, but they're ignoring him. He's like, what's a guy got to do to get a knife around here? So he gets up, and he stumbles out the door into a high storm.
Yeah.
And he walks over to the other chamber that everybody's chilling out in during the storm.
Well, he goes over to the barracks
hey,
where his troops are, right?
Right. Yeah. So he walks in there. He's like, hey, did I lend you my knife? And his soldier's like, yeah, I gave it back to you. He's like, shit.
Oh, you did. My bad.
Yeah, and he slams that door. He walks back inside. He's dripping wet back into this feast hall.
Just sits right back down in his chair, and it's absolutely silent. Everyone's staring at this maniac who just took a walk in a high storm for no reason. He brought his mug with him, which is now just full of rainwater, and he's just drinking it. right?
Yeah, because what else is a drunk guy gonna do? So
and
he
this
goes
guy that
back
Gavilar was
to
having
drinking his
talks with
wine.
is like disturbed. He's like, "Oh my god!" And he's I'm gonna have to excuse myself for just a minute here. He leaves.
Yeah.
It turns out that was the right thing to do, somehow.
Yeah. Because then an assassin is coming over.
No, wait,
So,
before that, I just like this fact. When Gavilar turned to him, and he said, "I think you just convinced them." And Dalinar's like,
yes.
"Convinced who?
Right.
What?" And Gavilar's like, "Well, they need to know that we are strong, right? That we can offer them protection.
All right.
And
Tough enough,
it takes a special sort of strong to just wander out into a high storm, right?" And
Right.
Dalinar's like,
this is
"Oh,
a very good,
cool."
like comparison between, Shallan trying to act all tough and Dalinar doing it accidentally while he's legitimately super drunk.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fun side by side there.
Yeah, Dalinar finally gets a knife, but it's just a tiny little one that he can hardly use, right? It's like a
Right.
butter knife.
Yeah.
He's trying to cut his steak, accidentally bends it in half. Oh.
Oh, jeez.
Why is life
And,
so hard?
Navani's like, how did you even do that? And he's like, and he just tosses that over.
He has an awesome line where somebody's like, "What if somebody insulted your biceps?" He says, "I would refer them to a physician." Because there might be something wrong with their eyes. And it's like, oh my god, past Dalinar, why are you so cool? Like,
Yeah.
I really enjoy the archetype in D&D where you play like a super buff fighter who's just like stupid as rocks, right?
Mhm.
It's so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
fun to play that sort of character. And like that is 100% Dalinar in this chapter.
Yep,
Like,
yep. He
oh
is
my god.
he is like an 8 intelligence, half-orc barbarian, just
So good.
getting by.
I love this.
Yeah. So yeah, then somebody is trying to just straight up assassinate Gavilar, and Dalinar just happens to notice, so he just
Yeah.
like sees this like a second, so he like kicks out the leg to Gavilar's chair, so he falls on the ground, just like choke slams this guy into the ground, takes the knife that he tried to kill him with, dips it in the wine to like clean it off, and then he's like, finally, and just starts eating his steak, and everybody's like, what is happening?
Yeah, straight up kills the assassin. And the way it was worded in the book, too, it's like, it's almost like saving Gavilar was secondary, and his main goal was to get the knife, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the drunk logic kind of puts that together.
I just loved this. I love this so much, where he's like, he finally saw a knife in the room, and it was behind the back of somebody approaching Gavilar.
Yeah, and then later he, just, in that similar vein, they were like, everybody was staring at him, he's like, I'm not going to drink the wine with the blood in it, I'm not a barbarian.
Yeah, jeez, why is everyone looking at that?
What do they take me for?
Yeah. So, I mean, he, like, saves his brother's life and then just immediately goes to cutting up this steak. Like, he doesn't even, like, reference the fact that all that just, oh, so good.
Right, and Gavilar's like, thanks.
Yeah, Gavilar's like, oh, cool. So, hey, how do you feel about marrying this girl? And Dalinar's like, all right, fine, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Sure.
So Dalinar has agreed to marry Evie, and we know that ends up going through, right? For purely political reasons.
Yep. And she's just a like relative of these foreigners they're trying to, get on their side.
Yeah. And wow, what a chapter. I just love this one so much.
Yeah, it was really good.
The title of it as well is The Subtle Art of Diplomacy.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And now we're on to our final chapter of the reading, where we're back to Kaladin.
I was just watching a video today. I don't even remember what it was about, but it was talking about how different sessions of British Parliament are from Congress, and it's like there's people just dunking on everybody all the time, and it's just that kind of reminded me of this. It's much more theatric, I guess, than you would expect official governing and lawmaking to be.
Yeah, man.
Good stuff.
And even with all their memeing in Parliament, it seems like they still got a lot more done than we do here. Not trying to get political, but no. All right.
Yeah. Anyway.
So we're in the last chapter now. Kaladin is back with all his parchment buddies. Syl is pretending to be a Windspren again, just so she doesn't get noticed by the Void Spren that's hanging out with all these dudes.
Yep, and she thinks that the Parshendi can also see the Spren, so doesn't want to raise their suspicion either.
I mean, what we have here is more or less a conversation where they were like, we don't want to go back to being slaves. If we try to negotiate, we will get, enslaved again. Kaladin has a fun little thing he talks about where he says, well, I mean, even after I stopped being a slave, I still spent all my time just serving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has a line where he says, like, why use cords to bind when society and obligation does a better job, right, or something like that. Yeah. And it really felt like a epic gamer, like we live in a society sort of quote. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it seemed a little edgy, not in Kaladin's usual edginess, but in just a I'm 14 and this is deep kind of way,
Yeah, I mean there might have also been some truth to it, but
right. Yeah, I mean it's not all. It's just like it toes the line between kind of true, like I guess there's no like objective freedom, but on the other side it's like one of those boomer memes where like you read this and it's like, man, everybody just cares about their cell phone, and it's like one of those like crazy like washed out faces.
Oh yeah, dude. I love cell phone memes. There's this video you should watch, John. It's a Gus Johnson. It's called God's Country.
Yeah, I got a notification for it. God Awful Country, I think.
Yeah, that video was hilarious. Apparently he did another similar one a long time ago, but this new one was better. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, Kaladin's talking to the Parshmen more. Bada bing, bada boom. Syl informs Kaladin that a high storm is coming. Mm-hmm. And
that's kind of it.
That's it.
Yep. Same deal with knowing that he's probably gonna have to fight against these people.
Yep.
At some point, but he's
very
still
sad.
Just helping them out. Yeah.
I personally hope that Kaladin does not ever have to fight against these people.
Yeah, no, they seem pretty innocent. Seems like something an honor boy wouldn't really want to do.
I mean, that's the thing is like everybody is just people, right? I feel like basically anybody, if you just like sit down and like have a meal and a one-on-one conversation with a person, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably not gonna hate them, Right. You're probably gonna find something you have in common, and you're probably gonna get along just fine,
Right. Yeah.
And
I was thinking about...
And then you might find out afterwards, like, oh man, that guy was a member of the KKK, or like, or maybe, right. I don't know.
Right, they just have some fundamental beliefs that it opposes yours, or they're, I mean, like, KKK is an extreme example, but like, they could just have a, whatever your most important, like, political belief is, they're on the exact opposite side, but just from, like, talking to them over lunch, you wouldn't necessarily... realize that.
And I mean, even the KKK example, like, it's extreme, but I feel like it's also kind of accurate. Like, I imagine that even a lot of these people who are members of the KKK, which is obviously a horrible organization that I do not approve of, right? Mm-hmm. They're probably, like, one-on-one pretty decent people, right?
Right, yeah.
They just happen to have this one more or less inexcusable belief, right? And I imagine that a lot of Nazi soldiers, probably absolutely wonderful people, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But they're part of this organization that is, shall we say, misguided.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like this was also in a video I was watching earlier where it was like, a lot of people, like most people are in this guy's opinion, and I think I tend to agree, or just like pretty good people, and a lot of people are, much more like intelligent than you probably give them the, when you just give them the benefit of the doubt, and any, a lot of things are just misunderstandings or like different beliefs that make you think that they're, less intelligent than you are. Like, I heard the quote that I don't think this was during the podcast, I can't remember, where one of our friends was like, think of the dumbest person you know and realize half people are even dumber than that. And I'm like, I don't really buy that. You and I talked about that.
Yeah.
I just heard it again so quickly, and then I saw this video and I was like, that doesn't seem true to me.
Yeah, so I mean that's another thing that Brandon Sanderson has kind of addressed, right? Back in that Taravangian scene where, one of his servants was saying, like, I think you might be above average today, you're making some great decisions here. He was saying, no. I'm at average intelligence. The average person is just smarter than you think they are, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting what's the there's a word. Interesting, I don't know, dialogue, I guess, about the human condition, maybe.
Mm-hmm. I think
Yeah.
I think people are good, but groups of people are bad often.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But
No,
I think
that's
if
good.
you took basically every individual in a group, and you know, even if it's a group that like is, you know, super racist or whatever, and you force them to, you know, like live with one of the people that you know, of the group they hate for a while, they would realize, in fact, that, you know, they're both just people and they get along great, probably, right?
Yeah.
That's, you know, I'm sure that's not always true, but I think that on average,
Yeah, I think you're right, and you know, that's one of the biggest problems with like the, you know, modern internet, is it just makes it easier for people with like extreme beliefs to find other people who think the same way. And so,
yeah, I think that's a quote as well. Ignorance breeds hatred, right?
yeah.
So I think
Something
that's
like that.
totally accurate. You know, it's just it's ignorance of, you know, what people are really like. I don't know. Everyone's just people. Everyone's just people.
Right. Yeah.
Why do people got to
Everyone
keep
is just
categorizing
people.
each other? Why can't we all just be people together, huh, John?
Hey, ain't that the truth?
Oh well. All right. Hey, next time around,
Yeah.
we're gonna read chapters 21 through 32.
21 through our perfect system.
I know.
Dashed.
Almost 10 chapters a week, but alas, this will get us right to the end of part 1.
Okay. Oh yeah. I was just thinking about that today. I was like getting through a part next week.
Yep. And after that, we'll read even more book. Holy moly!
No way.
What a day.
The next chapter is titled "Set Up to Fail," so that ought to be good.
Oh. Uh-oh.
What are you gonna do, Shalon? How are you gonna screw this up?
Shalon, don't you dare screw this up. I mean, hey, John, thanks for doing a podcast with me today.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Sam. An
I
honor and a privilege.
guess that none of you still listening went out and kissed that bird. It's a shame.
Son.
It's a shame because the bird was going to grant you a wish if you kissed it.
Anything you desired.
your wildest hopes and dreams would have come true.
And what's even worse is everybody that didn't listen to the beginning probably don't even know. So it's like all the people that don't even know this podcast exists, they probably weren't just thinking, "I'll kiss a bird today." And all of you people know now, but now it won't work.
Chances
Now
are
you've
that like
validated it.
nobody kissed a bird.
Right.
Oh, no.
Statistically.
Oh no.
Yikes. Well, hey, come back next week now that, you know, the greatest thing in your life, biggest opportunity missed, dashed like so many stones.
You dash a lot of stones, John?
Yeah.
All right.
Walking around.
This
Okay,
outro has
we
gone
need
on
to
way
kill
too
this.
long.
We need to. The merciful thing to do is let this die.
I think we stopped talking about the book like probably over 5 minutes ago.
Yep.
Bye.